Hi, this is the module Automation Intro within DataMiner Configurator Level 2. Before we dive into it, let's take a quick look because the Automation Intro is the last module within this series of DataMiner Configurator Level 2. Within this series, we basically looked at the graphical layer. We took a look at creating Visio files, making nice dashboards, and even making full-blown low-code apps to bring the data towards the user, basically. Defining that user was in the previous module, how to define those users and the security that they have in the DataMiner system. And we basically saw also in those different graphical layers, we can easily add a button there to automate certain things. You click on a button, something is changing in the system. Well, therefore, we typically rely on those automation scripts. So that's exactly what we are going to do in this module, taking a quick look at that. Now, if you reach this point, congratulations on watching all those videos, especially if you started all the way from fundamentals. Double thumbs up. That's a fantastic achievement here. And it even doesn't stop after this one because we also have sysadmin, which is also definitely a recommendation because it has some nice goodies in there. Anyhow, we're here for the automation intro. This is the module Automation Intro within DataMiner Configurator Level 2. And in this module, we'll take a look at the introduction. So you could say the basics of automation, because it's an important module to automate things and to put actions behind buttons and schedule things and automatic actions that are being taken all rely on automation scripts. It's only the introduction because we're going to take the first basics of it, creating a new automation script, making a basic one. We're not going to go into the C# section of the automation scripts because you can also rely on C# and the more advanced applications such as user-definable APIs or ad hoc data sources or these kind of things. That's for the Automation Pro, which is covered in the sysadmin series. Here we make a starting point, a basic script, and we will trigger that script and play around with that in our DataMiner system. All right, so first things first, we're going to take a look at the automation app, how to manage those automation scripts that we have in there. We'll create a brand new automation script, take a look at how to add those actions in there, execute those things. So running an automation script is also going to be covered in there. And there's also an exercise at the end, but we basically already will create some automation script as we go in the slides here. Okay, so first things first, the automation app. So you can find that if you go to the apps in the sidebar of DataMiner Cube and go for automation, it will open up the automation UI. So here we can manage all of our scripts. Whenever you select a specific script in the tree structure you have on the left hand side, you will see the contents of your script. We'll take a look at it step by step. So the objective really is here to build a catalog, you could say, of all kinds of scripts where we automate certain procedures that we have in our system. So instead of an operator needing to click and go to a specific data display, find those parameters, make all those settings according to your procedures, you can just build it once into your automation script, and the operator can just click on the button and it all happens automatically. So you avoid repetitive tasks, but you also make sure that the procedures are being executed correctly, nothing is being forgotten. Those things are also more error-proof, you could say. But it's not only about manual execution of automation scripts, it's also about scheduling them or doing them on a more event base. If something happens in my DataMiner system, I want to, for instance, go to a backup device, execute certain procedures, or when a booking happens, I want to do certain actions there. So there's a lot of things that are going to rely on these automation scripts. So it is an important module. Okay, so we'll be creating there a brand new automation script. So we're going to be going into that tree structure. You can use the right-click menu, or you can also use some of the buttons at the bottom there to create a new folder, to add a new script in there, to delete one. Also in the right-click, that's available. You can even import and export automation scripts. So if you created something on like a staging environment, you can export it from there and import it again on your production environment. And of course, don't forget about that catalog we have, the catalog.dataminer.services. We have a lot of automation scripts on there to be able to give you a starting point, you could say, to start with automation scripts. And it's also possible to use drag and drop to reorganize a little bit your scripts and move them to a different folder. Okay, let's take a look at that in our DataMiner system. So I'll be using our training demo system again in the Skyline Academy organization. So underneath apps, as I mentioned, we do have that automation module there. That's the one we need. On the left-hand side, you see a whole series of folders with all our scripts in there. Whenever we select a specific script, you will see on the right-hand side the content of the scripts. We will be looking at the training folder, and we will be doing our thing in there as a training example there. Okay, so that's where we can find them. That's where we can keep things organized. Let's now create our very first automation script, a basic one, because we're not going to go into C# for now. So what are the steps? So we need to choose our location. If you want, you can create a new folder. If you chose your folder, or you can just do it under the root, you add a new script and you give it a more meaningful name. You can also give it a description, and there are some more details to that. We're gonna skip the section here and immediately, just for now, we're gonna skip it, and we're immediately going to go into the actions. So within the actions, you can just add an action by clicking on the add button, which gives you a drop down of all the available actions. Let's not worry too much about that. We're just gonna go for the very first simple one, which is the information that I can do, the information event message that will be generated. And I just type in a message that will be generated as information event. So that's probably like one of the most easy automation scripts you can create. You can just save it, and I can also execute that. That's exactly what I'm going to do now as a very first starting point. So within my training folder, I right click on there and I say add script. So I want to add a script in my training folder, and I give it a name, which is just my training underscore my first name. And there I will skip for now everything which is dummies, parameters, memory files. I don't need to worry about those things. And I will immediately just go to add an action. And the very easy action that I will add is information, generating an information message like hello world. Very simple, that's it. I want to save it, and let's just immediately execute it as well. So you can save it on the lower right hand side. You can execute it. We're going to come back to the options here. We don't need to worry too much about those. We just click on the execute, and that's it. It was executed already. Let's take a look at the information events. Do I have my hello world there? Yes, I have my hello world, which has been added also behind there with script training Bert, just more for like debugging purposes, that you know which automation script is generating which information events. So my hello world is there. That's my very first simple automation script. I gave it a name, added one action, and I saved and executed that. That's it. That's basically what automation is. So let's take it from there to the next step. First thing I will do is I will now discuss the section which I skipped with the dummies, parameters, and memory files. Okay, there's a lot of information on the slide, so let's take it step by step. Let's go back to my script. So I currently have a hello world. But typically I want to, for instance, reconfigure certain settings on my audio output level there, the Philips device that I have been using throughout the different modules we covered. I typically was changing it to 9, to 12, to 18 to generate a little bit of alarms. So let's say I want to create an automation script for that. Well, what I would do is I would go for add, and then one of the actions there is set. So I want to set something, but what I will notice if I want to set a parameter. Yes, I want to set a parameter, but then it says like, yeah, but we're not immediately here going to hard code it onto a specific element because I have like a gazillion IRDs in my system here. So which one do you want to execute it on? I'm not going to create a script for IRD 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and have like 20 scripts there. No, I will work with so-called dummies or placeholders. So if you create a new dummy, you will create a placeholder. So it creates a dummy here, and I can give it a more meaningful name, for instance, IRD. And I need to choose which type of device I'm targeting. So I want to do certain settings with one of those Philips IRDs, and the version typically always go for production. Remember, version production is always what I want to do. And now I will be able to say like, oh, I want to set a parameter on my IRD and I want to change the audio output level to value 0 dBm, and I can just click on there and change it to, for instance, 12, etc. So this is very simple. You just click and go and say what you want to do. I want to set a parameter on the IRD. I had to create an IRD, which was happening in a dummy there, audio output level to value 12. So that's what a dummy is. A dummy is a placeholder. If I now want to do another set on the same device, I can do easily again another set on the same IRD and change, for instance, also the audio mode, etc. So I can just delete that again because I don't immediately want to do that now. Okay, that's fine. There's one more thing there, the configuration element, and then you can specifically choose if you want to, for instance, use IRD 1, 2, or 3 as configuration element. Why can a configuration element be interesting? Not necessarily here for the type of device we have here with the Philips IRD, but if you, for instance, have a matrix with a lot of inputs and outputs, instead of working here with setting a cross point with input 1 or input 36 combined with output 128, you would be able to see the labels that you attach to it if you choose a specific matrix or router as the configuration element, which will be used as the labels in here in your automation script. But for the Philips IRD, it doesn't really make a lot of difference, so we don't need to worry about that. Okay, so I now have an automation script that is able to change my audio output level to 12. And actually, I want to save this and try that out. So what I will do is I will go to IRD1, for instance, open a new card, and let me put it side by side so that you can see the audio output level there as well. It is already on 12. Okay, so let's put it on 6. So set the IRD audio output level to 12. I did a save of my script. Let's now execute. Of course, if it executes I'm no longer able to immediately execute it like with the hello world. That was just, didn't need any input from me. Now it does need some input from me, and it wants to know like on which IRD do you want to execute this automation script. And of course, I want to execute it on the one that I have open here, which is IRD 01. So let's go for IRD 01, and I can now execute that, and you will see this is now changed to 12. Okay. So that's how I can do a set with a dummy. So typically you work with dummies to make your script reusable reusable for executing it on different elements in your system. So typically you don't want to hard code it to one specific element, because I maybe next time want to execute it on IRD 2. Okay, so that is a dummy, but okay. I have some flexibility on which IRD I can execute my element, but this set is actually still a kind of like hard-coded because it's always on 12. And maybe as a user, I want to choose on which value it needs to be set. So, well, therefore, we have parameters. And a parameter is like asking for additional input to the user, asking for an additional parameter that can be used then throughout the execution of your automation script. So let's add a parameter, and the parameter is going to be, or let's say, new audio level. The new audio level that I want to set. So it's going to ask for new audio level. I'll come back to the values file. Don't worry about that now. And now instead of changing it to the value 12 dBm, well, instead of to a fixed value, I will change it to the variable. And the variable is, if I can click there, is the new audio level that I have just created here. So it was also possible to actually in here create a new script input parameter. So the new level will be used without an offset. So just whatever the user says, immediately set it. You could also do a plus or a minus 3 dBm, for instance. Okay, so that's a little bit more flexibility. As a user, I will need to define on which device I want to execute the automation script, and I will also need to specify the new level. So let's save that, and let's execute it. So I need to define, of course, still again, my IRD 01. And the new level, let's put it back on 6, for instance. Execute now, and indeed it's setting it to 6. Perfect, that works great. And now I have even a more flexible automation script. Okay, indeed, but there's still a little bit of a problem because I'm actually able to choose any audio output level. And I don't want that because, well, more specifically, I need to choose 6 or 9, but maybe I also want to limit the choices so that the user can only, for instance, toggle between a low or a high value, and they need to choose between 6 or 12. Nothing else is allowed. Well, therefore, you can go for a values file. So instead of, let me execute it again. Here I can type whatever I want. I can even type text in there. That would even be more invalid, but I can also say, for instance, 99 or 999. That's too high. So I can basically do whatever I want in there. That's not what I want. I want a possible values file, a drop down with possible values. And that's what I can do with a values file. Then it will give me a drop down with the possible choices that I have as a user. Now, what is a values file? There will be a whole series of existing values files on this system, but those are actually here in the second tab page, memory files. A values file is a memory file. It's a file with a series of values in there, or values in there. So I can create a new memory file by at the bottom saying new memory file. I give it something like possible audio values. And I can just add, this is like an array, and I can just add in there 6, and I can add in there a second value 12. The position is just the ordering. Description is if you want to make it a little bit more human readable, for instance, low, which is 6 dBm, dBm, and high, which is 12 dBm. All right. So 6 and 12 is possible, and to make it a little bit more human readable, I also say that this is the low and the high, and that it's dBm. Okay, that is a values file or a memory file where you just add a couple of values and an optional description. You don't necessarily need to just add a description there. I added that in there to make it more human readable. which kind of units are what is low and high. Okay, let's apply that one. So I created a new one. Let's now go back to my automation script. And now I can choose from the possible values that, let's take a look here, the possible, it is not showing up. So let me just quickly see if I can reload that. Is it now showing up? No. Did I save it? Yes, I did save it. Let me just close the automation for a second and reopen it in a new card so that they are still next to each other. So that this refreshes. So let's go back to my training folder. Training BERT, and I have there my new audio level, and let's see if I now have the possible audio values. Yes, I have. So since it's a new file, I had to do a little bit of a refresh there by reopening the app. So now the new audio level will not just accept any value, but I will need to pick and choose one from the possible values that I defined. Let's save the script now and let's execute it. So I can choose my IRT 01, and then the possible values are low or high. That's the only thing I can do. Low, execute. Oh, yeah, it's on low. High, execute. It's on high, and low, execute. It's back on low. So that makes it quite simple and error-proof, so that people cannot make any mistakes. So that's what the values file is all about. Okay. So there is also that memory file that I just created that can be used also in here. So you can also create a memory file. You can create a volatile memory file, meaning that this array of possible values or values are basically only going to exist during the runtime of my automation scripts. So when it starts, it creates a new memory file, and I can do certain actions with that and remember variables throughout the execution, and maybe pass it along to a subscript, because that's also possible. Or you could also go for a persistent, and then it will basically remember the possible values for a next iteration or a next execution of your automation script. So that allows you to really reuse values across different executions of your automation script. We're not going to go for memory file now. We already did an example here with the possible memory files, but as possible drop-down values there. So that's how you can make your automation script a little bit more dynamic. Instead of really hard coding it, we will be using dummies. So I've talked about the dummies, but optional configuration element, not that important, more for like, for instance, a matrix. The input I need from the user on what they can and what they want as new value. And optionally, I want to limit their choice with a possible values file, which I configured in the memory files editor. And memory files is more for advanced script to store memory files or variables across different executions, for instance, when they are persistent. Volatile is during the execution only that it's being remembered. Okay, so that's the top section that we took a look at here. Now, let's take a look at a couple of more actions, because what we have been adding was an information event and a set. We also did a set already. Next to a set, we can, of course, also do a get. So we can easily, for instance, say, I want to create an automation script that takes the settings from a source IRD to a destination IRD, so that you can easily say, oh, this is an automation script that copies the settings from a main to a backup device. And the automation script, when you execute it, you choose your main device, you choose your backup device, and it basically gets the current settings from the main device and puts it on the backup device, and then you can reroute the signal to the backup device. So if you have like an M+N redundancy group, these kind of automation scripts can come in handy. Or also to load profiles, for instance, you can configure all the necessary settings on a device. So you can get, for instance, the audio output level from one device and put it on another device. You can also change the element state. That's changing it to start, stop, but also assigning an alarm template or a trend template. So if, for instance, the alarming needs to be different during different times of the day or during the weekends, you can change the alarm template when certain conditions are met with a scheduled task, or when a user clicks on a button, you can change the alarm template dynamically. And here you also have the possibility to send an email to a person with, for instance, optionally a dashboard attached to it. We also saw the same thing when we were doing the scheduled task, but here you can do that with a click of a button or more event-based. That is also possible to trigger an automation script event-based. So those are a couple of the actions. Whenever you add actions, we have seen that here as well. So when we add actions, I have two actions on the right-hand side. We can change the order, so you can do the set first and then generate the information event. You can still duplicate the actions. You can delete them again. So on the right-hand side, you have the possibility to change the order, to duplicate it, or to delete your actions. Some more actions are just a plain comments that I can do. And I believe if I take a look at the show comments, there will be here an option, write comments to log file. So that you can use a little bit as, you could say, debugging purposes. So if you add comments, is just more for general documentation of your automation script, what the purpose is, what this section is doing, especially when you have a longer automation script. But it can also be used kind of like for debugging purposes. If you then enable this advanced option, then it will write all the comments that you have in your automation script as logging. So if you somewhere have a more lengthy operation, then you can identify where it is, maybe which device is taking a little bit longer to adapt to the new value. An information event, that one we already took a look at, and a script can execute a subscript. So you can make a subscript to make it more reusable, you could say, and you have different main scripts can call the same subscript. So you can make it a little bit more organized and reuse scripts with calling them here as a subscript. The options will come back to that when executing it. There are some more actions to it. You can play around with some of them. Some of them are a little bit more advanced, and in the Automation Pro module in sysadmin we'll also be covering a little bit more about C# code, because that's an interesting one. If you are familiar with C#, that gives you a lot of flexibility as well. Okay, but I think we have already gone through a couple of those basic steps to start with. Now, running an automation script, we did already run our automation script, but let's have a quick look at our options we had there. So when we clicked on execute, we get this pop-up. The very first time when I only had the information event, it didn't require any user input. Then I added also the IRD there. Then it asked the user like, oh, which IRD do you actually want to execute this on? So it's asking for an element. And then it was also asking me for a value, and it was asking me for a value with possible values in a drop down. So I kind of like covered the different cases here. Some of the options, they are quite self-explaining. Wait for the script before to finish before continuing. Let's maybe go back to our exercise again. What I will do is I will, let me maybe reorganize it again. Before doing the sets, I want to do another set, because maybe the procedure is that first of all, before I can change the audio output level, I first need to turn the value or the LMB1 supply off, then I can change it to the new value, and then I can turn back or let me duplicate this one, then I can turn it back on. So I can easily duplicate a line, and this one I'm turning it back on. So what do? I will turn off the LMB supply, then I change the value, and then I turn it back on the device. But I need a little bit of time before the device will be ready to accept the new value. So I want to put in there another one we didn't cover yet, the sleep action. Let me move it a little bit more up. So I set the device off, I turn it off the device, and then I sleep for 5,000 milliseconds. I wait a little bit. The device is now completely turned off. Then I can change it to the new audio output level I chose, and then I can turn on the value again of the turn on the device again. So I kind of like use the LMB1 supply as a turning the device on and off. Let me show you the visuals here, because here we have on the graphical presentation the audio output level and the LMB1 supply combined together on the Visio. So let's execute that. So it will take 5 seconds before it will effectively change to the new value that I choose. So let's go for my IRD01 again, and the value I'm going to go is high. So if I now execute, you will see it turns off. It takes 5 seconds and my script is executing, waiting. And then when it's 5 seconds, when it's slept for 5 seconds, it does the set and it releases my UI. Now, if I go for 6, and if I don't wait for the script to finish before continuing, then I can just execute. It says like, okay, it's executing indeed. It's LMB1 is off. And then after 5 seconds, it's to 6 and back on. So there you basically just execute the scripts without waiting. Especially if you have subscripts, for instance, it might be needed to wait or not. Or if you, for instance, execute this from a button here somewhere on the UI, yeah, you don't want people to wait, for instance. You can just trigger it and they will see the results somewhere on the screen and you don't have to wait. So whether you want to wait or not, be aware that certain scripts can be lengthy, especially if you do sleeps in there and things like that. And also the second option, whenever a set is being executed in an automation script, by default, the automation engine will automatically check if the device effectively accepted the new value before continuing. So it will do the sets and then it will wait a little bit and wait until the read effectively changes and then it will continue. So certain elements might take a little bit longer before the new value is being accepted by the actual element. Locking, we saw that you can lock in elements, force locking, wait when it's locked or busy. If somebody else is busy, do you need to wait? And you can also mark your element as being in use. So those are a couple of more advanced options, you could say. So those are the options. Of course, a manual execution, I typically won't go to the automation app, but I want to visualize it with an easy to use button on a graphical interface. So here, for instance, we have some buttons also there to switch to the main or to the backup. Those are easy to use buttons. An operator can just click on it and it immediately executes. Same thing from a dashboard, same thing from a low-code app. You just add a button there and it executes the scripts in the background for the user. So this is a typical manual execution. We can also go, for instance, for a scheduled execution. If we go for a scheduled execution, we go for the scheduler. We add a scheduled task, like this one is running daily at 12 o'clock. And then we go to the last tab page, the Actions tab page, where we previously already added a email with a daily report. There we can also add a script and, for instance, execute our script. So this is something where we can say, like, every day, every morning, or at 8 o'clock in the evening, or in the weekends, or once a month, we need to do certain actions. Not only setting of parameters, but any kind of action in a DataMiner system. Changing an alarm template we mentioned, starting, stopping elements, and a lot more is possible. Even if you, well, especially if you go to C# scripts, you can go above and beyond on the possibilities. So scheduled is a valid case, and of course also we have the correlation engine here, which can trigger an execution when a certain condition is met. So if something is happening in a DataMiner system, we can detect that. If a critical alarm is happening on certain elements or within a view, we can trigger an automation script to, for instance, automatically go to a backup device. So we can execute a backup procedure whenever something is detected in the system. So that's typically done with a correlation rule. Correlation is something we will discover in the sysadmin. If you still are following the sysadmin, definitely recommendation to take a look at that module as well, because correlation can detect these things in your system and automatically trigger the execution. There's more to it as well, with, for instance, the ad hoc data sources in the dashboards is using that, or the low-code apps with GQI. So also user-definable APIs is something where these automation scripts are being leveraged, and the chat ops or the Teams integration can also use those automation scripts. So whenever in Teams you do some custom commands, an automation script is being executed. So you can see automation scripts is coming back in various places throughout the system, even through APIs or through Teams or through dashboards, low-code apps, correlation rules. All of these things are able to rely on those automation scripts to do all kinds of magical things in your DataMiner system, you could say. So you can see it's really a cornerstone to take your system to the next level. We did already play around with some exercises where we were using a possible values only with 6 and 12. That was sufficient as an exercise. And we played with a dummy and a parameter and some sets on my audio output level, with even a sleep and an LMB1 supply. So we covered that exercise. You can play around with that as well if you want. But with this, I end my story on the automation intro. It's only the intro. There is more to come in the automation pro in sysadmin. So I would definitely recommend to continue your journey here with going for that sysadmin as well, because correlation, automation pro and some system center stuff is coming up there, which is very valuable as well. But as I said, congratulations to already get to this point. You did a great job. You achieved the end of the configurator level 2. Well done, and I still hope to see you in the next one.